The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Well, guys, a lot to say about that game as Tennessee looks as dominant as they've looked in a football game since going back to 2000 when they beat Louisiana Monroe 70-3. The game never in question, not even close. Those were two different teams entirely. We will dive into that. And I'll tell you what we'll also do. We'll take a lot of your comments. So hang tight with us as we will do that. Caleb Calhoun will talk turning points. We'll take some takeaways. We'll do that. Let me get your thoughts just initially on what Tennessee did to the Kent State Golden Flashes in a dominating 71-0 win.
They overwhelmed them up front and ran the ball at will. And I got to be honest, they just exposed how bad this Kent State team is, guys. I have to be honest. I'm not saying Tennessee's not a great team. Y'all know what I picked them to do at the beginning of the year. But
well, some don't. You picked them to win the national championship. You've been very high on Tennessee early. I've been high on Tennessee a little after you. But for those that are new, you did pick not only Tennessee to win a national championship, but Nico to
win the Heisman. Yeah, I picked it. And this
way
is
before the season. Way before the season. And guys, this was just a bad football team. This is the worst team Tennessee's played since any of you guys have ever been watching. Now that's relative. I will actually say, now that I've seen them an entire game, it is worse. That team was worse than the Louisiana Monroe game, which I'm sure you didn't watch the whole thing because you were young, not covering it. And why in the world would you sit through that thing? But I will say this team is worse than that team.
Yeah, they are. They are. As a matter of fact, Dave, you'll find it funny enough. I went to my aunt's house to watch that game when I was 12 years old. I distinctly remember it like it was yesterday, watching that game. Yeah,
strange.
Weird memory. But yes, this team is worse. This was a bad football team. And I said from the start, I said at the beginning of the season, this was a bad football team and the worst team Tennessee would face all year. 2 weeks in, I said this would be the worst team Tennessee's ever faced. And that turned out to be very true. They didn't even try to score in moments when they scored in the first half. People are going to talk about, and we're going to get into the takeaways, Nico looking relatively pedestrian. They didn't plan for that. They had some running plays that they had that were specifically designed to set up some big passes for Nico. And those running plays just happened to go for touchdowns because Kent State was just so bad. And I mean, it was an all-out bloodbath. And I want to give a little breaking news off the top, Dave, because our own Jimmy Hyams tweeted this, that apparently Tennessee offered to shorten the game in the second half, and Kent State said no, which they just made things harder for me and you and everybody that had to cover this game by doing that.
Well, that was just dumb by them. I'm glad he tweeted that out because I wondered if Josh Heupel said, I want the game longer to score more points. That's what I was wondering. So I'm glad he clarified that because that wouldn't have been good sportsmanship, right?
No, not at all.
That would have been too far. So we want to remind you the Last Look post-game show is brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me. No glasses, no contacts because I got LASIK. Takeaways from the game, your questions as well, your comments. We'll show them on the screen. But I want you to vote on this question because it's going to be pretty 50-50, I think. Do you now think Tennessee will win a natty? no, I have to see more, or yes, no doubt. All right. I'm going to give you my thoughts in 15 seconds.
See every play, even from the upper deck, with LASIK vision correction from the Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Do me a favor, hit like and subscribe. I'm trying not to sound like a know-it-all here, and Caleb, it's going to be hard for you to do so as well. But do I believe Tennessee can win a championship? Yes. I would still say, though, no, I have to see more, simply because of the two teams they played. Two were horrible. NC State got a decent win today, but I still don't really know what the Wolf Pack is. So if I had to take the field versus Tennessee, which is the way I purposefully set up the question, I would take the field. However, if you gave me one team today that I could pick, and that's the one, and I get one versus the field, I would pick Tennessee out of the top 5, which may expand to the top 6 without my personal top 6. Now that Caden Proctor looked better and Alabama looked better. But we'll get to that later. But I think you're still Tennessee versus the field, right?
Oh, yeah, I was Tennessee versus the field to start the year. I mean, however, that's based on certain things about the season itself, and I mean the off season itself. Nothing about how the season's gone. If I were to just base it off the season, I would have to say Texas at this point. I mean, Texas, for the record, I don't know if you guys saw Quinn Ewers went down, and Arch Manning, he's better than Quinn Ewers. And if there's a quarterback controversy down there, that's a different story for another day, because Arch Manning's better. But I will say that I think if you go based on just week 1 and don't take anything you know about the offseason into account, you go with Texas. I go with Tennessee versus the field because I say that all the excitement that everybody's had for Nico, it's kind of quelled because he's had a pedestrian 2 weeks, and not pedestrian, but much more quiet than people had hoped.
Why do you say pedestrian?
Because when you're looking at a hyper quarterback, you want to see the 300-yard, 4-touchdown game, and you're not getting that right now. But guys, I'm just going to say that. I'm going to say it. They're hiding him. They're keeping him under wraps, and they did it in this game.
Two things on that. I think as far as the fly route and taking deep shots, you're onto something. The Chris Brazzell pass was something for Oklahoma to prepare for and be scared of. I've said all along, I think he's that good. He didn't have to high point the ball as it was a dime of a throw, but he can high point with the best of them. I will promise you that. He'll win a high point at some point this season, and you'll be a little bit blown away because he can go up with the best of them. Now, I ask you to please hit the like and subscribe button. Again, the like and subscribe button. So that poll question, it's going to change. So hit it quick. Do you now think Tennessee will win a natty? Yes, no doubt. No, I have to see more. Caleb, you and I agree that Tennessee was a much, much better team. But what I will say is a takeaway from this game that really isn't a takeaway because I believed it before, Caleb, and that was that Tennessee is a very mature football team that is very close together. And I can promise you, absolutely promise you, that they're going to have the right approach every week. Therefore, Georgia might prove to be a better team one-on-one. Alabama or Oklahoma or Texas, okay? But I'm going to tell you, that would be in the SEC championship game against Texas, but I'm going to tell you right now that Tennessee will play their best game. I mean, they might make mistakes, but they're going to prepare right, and they're going to show up and be ready to play. Guys, look at the leaders on this team. Look at Brew McCoy. Look at Cooper Mace. Now, often you have to be led by your quarterback, Caleb. Look at Keenan Pilley. My goodness gracious. I'd never say this about middle linebackers, but he might be a first-round pick. He moves incredibly fast sideline to sideline for his size. To play the mic and be able to do that blows me away. He's way better than I ever thought. Caleb, the leadership on this team may not necessarily be at quarterback, which is ideal, but it's darn good.
Oh, I agree. This was the design of the team and the way they constructed it. We talked about this dating back to last December, Dave. We said, and you were the one who were reporting on the NIL, and it only fueled my belief that Tennessee had gone all in on my belief that Tennessee had gone all in on 2024, which was they said, we are going to spend our NIL money trying to make sure that we get the key players that are already on our team to come back for another year, and we take advantage of the experience that this team has. That's exactly what they did. And you're seeing that right in front of you now. You're seeing how mature this team is. And the truth of the matter is, you got to give them credit for that. And honestly, I think this team, you're right. And by the way, it's not like Nico's not a good leader and not a player that players want to not a player that the team wants to play for. But I mean, Cooper Mays, Keenan Peely, Brew McCoy, these are amazing leaders, guys that any team would want leading them. And I think you're right. It's part of the maturity, and it was part of the design by Tennessee under Heupel to construct the roster this way this year.
I need you to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the game, if you made it through it. And we'll talk about Oklahoma, which comes up, the Hype Bowl, where Josh Heupel played quarterback. We'll get to that in a little bit. Also, how Georgia has looked today. So a lot to get to. And Caleb, I want to remind everybody that if anybody wants to throw a super chat our way, it goes to young Quincy's college education, straight to Quincy. So they can do that if they would like. But most of all, hit like and subscribe. We greatly appreciate that. But if you want to support Caleb's newborn, you can. Like and subscribe. Go ahead and hit it right now. I want to get to some takeaways, and I see you on the message boards, and we're going to get that. But I want to throw some of these points that, again, I've covered this football team for like 25 years, basically, and I've never seen anything like this, anything this one-sided. First of all, most points scored at Neyland Stadium. Hey now. All right, Caleb, that's pretty good.
I mean, that's pretty impressive. And again,
how long has Neyland Stadium been around? You'll know off the top of your head.
1921. And so, yeah, most points scored at Neyland Stadium since 1921. I would believe most points scored since 1921. I mean, again, this isn't – if you go before – you have to go back to pre-World War I under Zora G. Clevenger, who liked to run up the score when Tennessee was scoring like this. Zora G. Clevenger would just hang 100 on people for fun. Did it all the time back then. And did it at your grandfather's school one time, Dave. Is it your grandfather who was the priest at Carson?
Great-grandfather was
great-grandfather.
Reverend P.H. Hooker.
Yes, Reverend Hooker. Love that.
It's true.
But yeah, that's what Zora G. Clevenger would do back then. Did it for fun. I think it was the American School for the Deaf. He did it too one year. It was just awful. But
Tennessee's greatest street new bowl question.
I'm not even kidding. You can look it up, by the way. That's not a lie. Tennessee played the American School for the Deaf one time.
We're going to have to get Caleb some Adderall. Focus. All right. Tennessee's greatest strength is culture at 50%, depth at 29%. Nico still gets 21%. Hit like and subscribe, but most of all, vote on that poll right now. We want to get to as many people as we can. Go ahead and retweet if you're watching on Twitter. But again, hit the like button, because I think in some ways Tennessee showed us the maturity that Caleb and I have believed in. Even in this blowout, they showed the maturity to make me believe that they may not only be a national championship competitor, but in another week, perhaps one of the favorites. So hit that like and subscribe button. Now, a couple of things we want to get to. And yes, we will get. Okay, Hunter says the onside kick. I do want to get to that. Was that sportsmanlike or not? Again, Tennessee's greatest strength is depth, Nico, or culture. So your thoughts on those three choices, Caleb, before we get to your next fantastic point.
Depth, Nico, or culture. I'm going to go depth. I'm going to go depth this year. Actually, no, it's culture. It's culture. I'm going to take culture.
It's funny because I talk about culture all the time, and I would go depth because I'd rather have a bunch of dudes that really don't like each other than a bunch of dudes that can't play that sing Kumbaya at night. So, nevertheless, those are extremes. All right, Vols score most points in a history in a quarter. Hey now. I will tell you what, Spencer Riley, who we love to have on Mondays, the former Tennessee center, I predicted 70-3, like the Law Monroe score, and he texted me. He said it looks like 70 when it was 37-0 at the end of the first quarter. That was a dominant first quarter. However, I will say this, Caleb. I don't understand why you're in the third. This shows how bad Kent State is. You're in the third game of the season, and you're having trouble with the shotgun snap. Wow. I mean, you've got to come up under center or something and change your whole offense, because I guarantee you they weren't handling the shotgun snap very well last week either.
Oh, no. No, not at all. I mean, that was really shocking. And do you think it partially had something to do with the moment and the size in Neyland Stadium just getting to them? Because the only thing that this reminds me of, and Dave, you will really appreciate where I'm going with this, but I remember after Urban Meyer unretired, he faked the health issue to retire from Florida, and then he unretired and came back for 2010 and didn't have Marcus Pouncey at center. And Florida was playing, I think, like Miami, Ohio in the first game. And they had like 5 snaps go over John Brantley's head. And you kind of knew watching Florida that game. They were a top 5 team. But I remember, I will never forget watching them saying, yeah, they're going to be a massively mediocre team this year.
That's kind of the most important. It's kind of most of the important thing is the snap. Hunter
being able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, Hunter says, I hate the fact James Pierce doesn't have a sack yet. Now, Caleb seems to think that they're holding Nico back in some shape, form, or fashion. I don't think so. I think they're just taking what the defense gives them. But I think they'll take more shots against Oklahoma to make a point. And this is huge for Josh Heupel, who's going to say it's just another game. And, of course, I played there and all this stuff. But he's beloved there by some of the fans. Some other fans think he's a dolt because he got fired as the offensive coordinator. But this is huge. I tend to think more along the lines that they've got some things with James Pierce they haven't showed yet. And he did apply pressure, Caleb, but I don't have the number count as far as how many snaps he played. Probably not very many. Just played 10 against Chattanooga, was disruptive against NC State. So the sacks are going to come. That's not a concern for me whatsoever.
Yeah, James Pierce has not played that many snaps. That's why he hasn't really stood out. He had a sack in this game, or he had an effective sack. It drew a holding penalty. He was blatantly held on the play. And guys, you're going to see this a lot of times with edge rushers. This is always the warning sign with edge rushers who are superstars or elite. And by the way, this is always why it's stupid when someone ever tries to run a Heisman campaign for an edge rusher or a cornerback. Because the truth of the matter is, what can you do with both of those positions? You can run the other way. And even more so an edge rusher, because at least, Dave, you would agree that a cornerback can alter the entire strategy of a passing attack. Whereas an edge rusher, you literally just go the opposite way. And all 3 teams to this point have gone out of their way to avoid James Pierce in every way, shape, and form possible. And he hasn't played a lot of snaps. So when you take those 2 things into account, of course he's not going to get a lot of sacks yet. Of course he's not going to get a sack yet. I wouldn't worry if I were you guys. Tennessee's 3-0. They've absolutely obliterated all 3 teams, and they haven't needed to use any of their stars yet. Why use them? I mean, why even try? I mean, this is the point. There's no reason to use them.
Right, because you can be an efficient offense. I go back to the slant to Dante Thornton in the beginning of the Chattanooga game. I mean, they could turn this into a pro-style offense and not take deep shots and still be great because they can run the ball. But they're going to take their deep shots. All right, Georgia barely hangs on with Kentucky, and then we'll get back to talking points about that game. What did Kentucky do last week, Caleb?
Lost badly to South Carolina.
What does this say about Georgia?
That they are, guys, this says that they are what they've always been under Kirby Smart. They turn it on when they need to turn it on. I mean, this is the same Georgia team that got really lucky when they beat Missouri a couple of years ago. So I think that's just what they do now. I think Georgia, quite honestly, to quote a former president, they get sick of winning.
Well,
I mean, it's weird. They actually get sick of winning.
They do play down to their opponent, and I think that's a factor. But here's the issue, and here's what Josh Heupel wants to do, and what's different is he's playing. He tries to get a monstrous lead to get his guys as much rest as they can in case they play 16 games, which would mean playing in the national championship game. That is a part of his plan, which most of the time I would say is crazy, but this team has looked so dominant that go for it. You know, if your game plan's adjusted by keeping your players fresh for the remainder of the season and you do this, go ahead and beat the bejesus out of them. But I'm kind of with Caleb. Until Georgia gets beat, I think they just kind of mess around. But it was just very close. And so, 13-12, I didn't see the last play, frankly. But, guys, we came on the air. But I hear it's a real downer, which is nothing new when you talk about what was it, the LSU, what was it called? The Miracle from LSU.
Oh, the Bluegrass Miracle at Kentucky.
Yeah, the Bluegrass Miracle. I mean, Kentucky has always found incredible ways to lose a game. Now, somebody else said something that I wanted to get to, and I'll keep looking at that. But Ben says Heupel look mad tonight. He used another word. I don't think so. I think he's so ready to get this game behind him and continue to prepare for Oklahoma. And I think he's more excited about watching Oklahoma all day tomorrow than he was about playing this game. Oh, yeah. I'm dead serious. I think he's so he's never going to say it, but people I talk to, guys, this is a big factor. This is a big thing for him, and he's going to want to beat Oklahoma not only a little bit, but soundly. Let's get to your next point as I tried desperately to mute this stupid television. All right, your next point is, Caleb.
Well, let's get to stats first, and then we'll get to some takeaways. But
all right, gotcha. So the Vols score most points at a half and in a game in the history of the modern era, dating back to 1936.
Yep, they scored 60. For a school, this is the most Tennessee's ever scored in the modern era, dating back to 36, which is when the AP poll began. 4 a half and a game, 65 and 71. For a quarter, 37-0. That's the most points they scored in a quarter since 2000, when they scored 35. Dave, that's so crazy to think about, by the way, because we just talked about them setting the Neyland Stadium record of 71, which they broke in 2000 of 70, and they've set a first quarter scoring record of 37, which they also broke in 2000 at 35. Did you know those were different games?
No.
Yeah, they scored 70 against Louisiana Monroe, but they actually went up 35-0 on Arkansas that year. That was kind of a revenge game for Arkansas beating them the year before in Fayetteville, and they jumped out to a 35-0 lead. I think Fulmer caught a fake field goal on one play in the first quarter, which I had never ever seen Fulmer call a fake field goal in his entire career. And I think there was another play where D'Angelo Lloyd, of all people, returned a fumble for a touchdown. But yeah, so those are the interesting stats of that.
Tennessee's greatest strength is the poll question: depth, Nico, or culture? Depth, 60%. Culture, 31%. Nico, 9%. Caleb, your takeaway from this football game?
Well, I got a few. Do we want to 4 downs this or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, 4 downs is right now, and it's brought to you by our good friends Campbell, Cunningham, and Taylor and Hahn. They bring you The Last Look, a post-game show with incredible vision. Here we go. What down? Wait.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Hey, did you see Camp on TV, by the way? Camp Mays, Coop's younger brother. Did you see him?
Yeah, he said he's the best of all of them.
Yeah, he's huge. Like, he's as big as me, and he's 12. All right, we're playing everything. All right, so let's get to Cooper Mays. Speaking of.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thanks, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
All right, your takeaways. Number 1, Caleb, and then we'll take another peek at the message board, and I'm going to reset the poll question. We'll take suggestions on the message board as well. Caleb, takeaway number 1.
Takeaway number 1 was what we talked about to begin. Kent State was historically bad. I mean, they lost to an FCS school. By the way, that FCS school is NAIA quality. If Kent State played Chattanooga, who Tennessee played in the opener, Dave, what do you think the spread would be on that? Because I think Chattanooga would be a 2-touchdown favorite.
You know, actually, Bubba talked to an odds maker, and I didn't get him in time. I called him on Thursday, and I didn't get him in time for the show on Friday. But I talked to him on Friday afternoon, and I heard about it. And Kent State, I don't know about Chattanooga specifically, but Kent State would have been an underdog according to his analytics, where he puts all this in. This is completely analytical. This is not, hey, I'm Fat Bob, call my 1-900 number, and I will give you the odds that'll win you money. It's not that guy, okay? All right, so he put the analytics in, and guess how many Division II teams would be favored against Kent State?
How many?
Guess.
How many Division II teams are there?
Have no idea, but
I
there
want to say
shouldn't be one.
Wow, you think they should all just give up football?
Well, no. There shouldn't be one that's an underdog to any division. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna say 70 because I don't know the number.
It was 33 according to his numbers.
That's still insane, by the way. That's still crazy.
It's very insane, and it could include Chattanooga. All right.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Takeaway number 2, Caleb.
All right. Stars were relatively quiet in this game, and they have been relatively quiet all year. I talked about Nico, and we talked about James Pierce, and also Brew McCoy just had 1 catch. I think a lot of this is by design. They want to save Nico because they want to hide what he can do, but also they don't want him to get hurt. James Pierce, again, there's been no reason to play him that much. Brew McCoy is coming back from injury. There's no reason to really work him too much into the lineup until you have to. So we both thought he'd break out in this game. He didn't really. And I think, again, they're just keeping him quiet until they're ready.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question right now. And I'm interested to see where people go. And did you ever feel sorry for Kent State? Did you ever feel sorry for Kent State, Caleb?
I felt sorry for their players. And honestly, the more I saw Kenny Burns, their coach, I actually hate to say this. I don't think he's a bad guy, but he's a bad coach. It's a Billy Napier situation all over again.
At a smaller level. It's Billy Napier. I don't know how you determine that. It was so.
You ever see a coach that you think is a good guy, but you just know he can't coach ball at all, and you know he shouldn't be a head coach, and you feel bad saying it, but he's not cut out for the job?
Hey, let me ask everybody to hit that like and subscribe button real quick and vote on our poll question. We got a question right now from the message board that I'm going to get to. Did you ever feel sorry for Kent State? 23% say yes, 77% say no. I didn't. Football's football. Their program got a lot of money, and he also declined to go with a shortened clock in the second half, which to me is kind of rude because Tennessee doesn't. They're hoping for a national championship. They're trying to take it easy on you. You're not only your players are like, please, Lord, shorten the clock. And no, you got to go out there and run around and see if you can get your guys hurt and Tennessee's guys hurt. That is silly.
Yeah, at that point, I would say that I probably don't feel sorry for him because you're right. Like, you got to shorten that game. It's kind of like the coach that, like, when a basketball team is down, like, by 15 and there's a minute left and they're still calling timeouts to, like, try to draw up offensive plays. You covered those teams, right, Dave?
Yes.
And I will never forget Buzz Peterson doing that one time. He's like, I still got to teach my guys. I'm like, I don't need you to teach your guys. Get this game over with. Like they're not thinking about people like us who have work to do.
Charles says, did Cooper Mays' dad play for UT? And is he originally from Kingston? I don't know if he's originally from Kingston. He played for Tennessee, and would have been a first-round pick. And he suffered the worst, craziest, most devastating injury you can imagine. He's done with his workouts. This is before the draft, and a young freshman asked him to show him how to go through a drill, and a non-contact, Kevin tore up his knee, and this is way before you could fix it. This is the early 90s, and it also caused, you know how we've heard like the artery damage and things like that? So it caused nerve damage, and it was really bad, and he didn't even get drafted. I mean, it was career-ending, and so, yes, his dad played for Tennessee, and you would know who he is had it not been for that one moment. And that just reminds you how fleeting this all can be. So enjoy it, because you've been through 10 years of pure blah. All right. So, camp will end up at Tennessee if Josh Heupel's here 6 more years. I think
if Butch Jones isn't there and screwing up the program to where camp has to go somewhere else, then yes.
That's where, right. But I thought you were going to say if Butch wasn't there, Cade Mays would have come to Tennessee instead of Georgia, which I believe he would have.
I went to public war with Tennessee fans that day because I defended Cade Mays' decision, and I said, what do you expect him to do? I mean, Tennessee hadn't fired Butch Jones yet. The program's falling apart. Of course he's going to go to Georgia. So,
yeah. It was hard for that family, and they took a lot of heat, and that's why I've got so much respect for Cooper, because, he's come out and he's done these interviews, and he's stayed with Tennessee. Now, he didn't have as many options, but he did want to come, and Jeremy Pruitt evaluated him when every other scout thought that he was too small, not fast enough, and all that stuff. And as it turns out, he's got every bit the ability and has turned himself into one of the best centers in the nation. He was second team All-SEC with the Alabama kid whose name suddenly mistakes me. Are we on third down, Caleb, for our takeaways?
Yep, pulling up third down.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
All right, third down. What's your third takeaway? As I'll remind everybody to hit like and subscribe. Don't forget that poll question. Did you ever feel sorry for Kent State? Caleb?
All right, so third down is, again, every one of these takeaways is with a grain of salt, but Tennessee's got an unstoppable run game. And it's, Dylan Sampson had 13 carries for 101 yards and 4 touchdowns. I'm still eating crow. I haven't fully backed off yet because it's 3 teams that he should have done what he's done against. But Dave, he's chasing Travis Stevens' 2001 record. Deshaun Bishop in the first half comes in with 7 carries for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Peyton Lewis has 10 carries for 99 yards. And Khalifa Keith has 3 carries for 7 yards, but he's a power back. Hunter Barnes gets in there. Runs a couple of times. This team, I think they ran for over 450 yards on the ground. This run game is insane, and Cooper is the anchor for that. Cooper and Javonte Spraggins.
Yep. You know what I was told about? One more thing about Kevin Mays is that the team that liked him the most was the Dallas Cowboys, which, if you think about it, if he was drafted at the time, he would have been a part of one of the greatest offensive lines in the history of football and would have won multiple Super Bowls. I heard they just really liked him more than others from an NFL source. Okay, so what down are we on now? By the way, that poll question is still up, but I'll address it here in a second. Did you ever feel sorry for Kent State? You should have felt a little sorry for him.
All-SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
What's your next takeaway, Caleb?
This is one you got, Dave, and you were dead right. Tennessee's got a clear backup quarterback, and he is not Jake Merklinger. He's Gaston Moore. And Gaston Moore completed all 4 of his passes for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. The only miss he kind of had of those 4 completions was that touchdown pass to Mike Matthews, where Mike Matthews made a spectacular play. Now, that's a takeaway I can take from this game that I think is underrated, because it doesn't matter the competition. To make that catch that he made, that shows he's going to be a superstar eventually, right, Mike Matthews?
Yes, and they clearly wanted him in the rotation. I thought they went out of their way early. I don't know what early is, though. Usually you talk about a guy playing in the first half, so he's a part of the rotation. But he played in the second quarter after a lot of starters were pulled. But I do think he's inching his way up the rotation. I think a lot of teams he would be the sensational freshman that maybe is the third receiver, kind of like Squirrel was in 2022. But this group's so good, it's just hard to get snaps when the game's on the line.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's and you so far you've been right that they've rotated a lot more than I thought. Again, we're going to see how that goes with SEC play. Tennessee hasn't really played anybody yet, guys.
But my takeaway from NC State is still this coaching staff is even better than I thought by the fact that they use that 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends. So I come away from that game as the Wolfpack may not be that great, but I like Tennessee's coaching staff even more than I did. All right, next bold question. The Vols could have scored how many points? I'm going to start with 90 points. You're not going to go higher than that, are you?
If how many they could have if they really wanted to?
Well, like if somebody's life is on the line and you say this many points.
Oh, God. They could have scored 120.
Okay, that's ridiculous. I'm going to say 90
How is that ridiculous?
I'm going to say 90 points, 110 points, and then I'm going to say 120 or more. All right, there we go. So that's on the poll.
120 or more if they wanted to?
No way. Come on, 120. Speaking of Matthews, Charles says Matthews looked awfully good. Raleigh Job Red says 150 points. He does look smooth, man. He does not look like a freshman. It's funny. You know he moves like to me is the 8 practices where I got to see Rashad Baker play receiver, and then Philip Fulmer came out the next day and moved into defensive back. But as far as a true freshman, he looks so fluid and so smooth. I hadn't seen enough to think that he's a potential superstar in 2 years, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you that guy, if he stays healthy and he keeps his mind right, he'll be on the Biletnikoff Award watch list, which is like 150 players. He'll be a finalist, and he'll have an opportunity to win it in this offense.
Dave, I've been you've considered me crazy on this from the start when I've been saying it, but a receiver that size usually is a physical receiver, dictate coverage type you talk about that blocks on the outside. They're usually not that fluid, as you point out, and he's a receiver that size who is fluid. So dare we invoke the Randy Moss name like I've been saying?
I gotta see him high point a ball like 2 or 3 times because it felt like when Randy Moss could high point a ball, he brought it in 9 out of 10 times. I mean, seriously, like I can't really. I mean, I remember a couple of people, maybe Dion knocked one away when they would go against each other because that was like must watch TV. But it seemed like he got every high point ball he jumped for, Caleb. So
and Dion was dealing with Turk at the time,
right? But that's to me a lofty standard.
I'm not saying it's going to be Randy Moss. I'm saying in the sense of what made Randy Moss the greatest receiver of all time, in my opinion, was typically your 6'4" receivers are not that fluid in how they play, right? And Randy Moss was the only one that was. Mike Matthews is a 6'5" receiver that is very fluid. Guys, that I don't think you guys get how rare that is.
I agree, but high pointing is a hand-eye coordination.
That's a rare skill. Yeah, that's a unique skill.
Yeah, and he may have it. I'm not saying he doesn't. In all honesty, I could make the argument that you would rather have a more fluid receiver that can do more things in this system than Randy Moss, who was not one-dimensional, but was used that way. Kind of like, he was used too much like Alvin Harper when he played for the Cowboys, former Vol. Alvin Harper got sick of that and because he was just run and goes the whole time, run and go, and Irvin would run underneath. And to quickly wrap up the story about Alvin Harper, the former Vol, he went to be a Buccaneer and everything was going great until he broke his pinky. And then the team doctor actually accidentally cut the end of his pinky off.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. That's like Tyrod. I think Tyrod Taylor had something like that happened a couple of years ago where he got the wrong jab somewhere. But
No, he
yeah.
literally got the end of his pinky cut off by the trainer.
That's rough. That's rough. Also, I don't know why he was complaining. He was catching touchdowns in the Super Bowl with Cowboys. Like, take your wins, bro.
Well, that was the first year of free agency, so he got paid. It was it was kind of heartbreaking because they probably would have won 5 in a row. Yeah. All right. Now this question, it's on your takeaway list, but we've already had some people ask about this on the message board. What did you think about the onside kick in the first quarter?
Okay. In the moment, and I still haven't fully changed my mind on it yet, but you can maybe sway me, and I'll tell you how I could be swayed. I thought it was as Bush League as Bush League could be in the moment. I don't mind if he does this to Oklahoma next week. It's Oklahoma. But it's Kent State. You're up 30-0. Why are you doing it? There's a lot of different ways. I'm fine with you running up the score, but an onside kick in the first quarter when you're up 30-0 on a MAC team that is the worst team in college football, what are you trying to prove? You look honestly small when you're doing that because you're like, oh, I can do this to a MAC team, but like, would you do that to Georgia? And so it looked really like, come on. But then I thought about it more, and here's why I can be swayed. My mind is still, my default is still to that side, but here's why I can be swayed.
I think I want to sway everybody on the message board with my answer. Go ahead.
What if he was trying to get the game over as early as possible to put his backups in as quickly as possible with the thought that Kent State would be smart enough to shorten the clock in the second half? And that's where I'm saying I could be swayed.
Okay, my two options are, what did you think of the Vols onside kick? And I'm going to tell you what I think happened. Now, I could be wrong, but and he's not going to admit it at a press conference, okay? So this is going to be one of those hopolisms we'll never know the truth of, okay? Just like he hid the Cooper Mays injury and he's going to play against Florida. Yeah, sure he is. All right, what did you think of the Vols onside kick? Keep your foot on their throat or poor sportsmanship? Just simply that. Now, do you remember when Dustin Colquitt suddenly threw a pass to a receiver out of a punt formation at Florida?
Yes, it was Britton Colquitt actually who did that.
I'm sorry, did I say Dustin? Britton.
Yeah, it was Britton who did it in 2005. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you know why he did that?
Because he saw Florida lining up for the punt block and he thought he had the pass wide open.
Right. It was his call. It wasn't a call from the sideline. Which I know that sounds crazy to make a punter make a call, but here was the issue. He forgot the rule that if you're on the own side of your 50, you don't do it. If you're on your side of midfield, you don't do it, which they were. So it was your 40 actually. So that was Britton's call. He made a bad call because they were on like the 32. Now, here's what I believe happened with the onside kick. I believe the kicker, Max Gilbert, or was that Josh Turbeville?
That was Turbeville.
Here's what I believe happened. I believe he saw that formation, and I don't know why in the world Kent State didn't have everybody up on the line. But that's just basically the same thing as telling your defensive lineman to line up like 10 yards back. It just made no sense. I've never seen a kickoff return formation like that in my life. And I think he saw the hole, and he is coached to do that. Now, maybe, just maybe, Josh Heupel should have said to him, hey, this game's out of control. Forget what we usually do in that look. But I could see that getting lost. I'm not putting it on Josh. I'm not putting it on anybody. As a matter of fact, I don't have a problem with it because you show Oklahoma. Now, you can say it's poor sportsmanship, and that's fine. But I don't have a problem with it. The other team is supposed to stop you. Okay, so while this was a mismatch, if you want to beat them 150-0, and you can do it. But Caleb, I believe that's probably what happened. But I'm not going on record or reporting that. I just have a weird feeling that's what happened. How would that change your thoughts on
that? Would totally change my mind. That would totally change my mind. And I just like I said, I could be swayed on what I thought or what you said right there would totally change my mind. Because you're right. It's funny you say that because go back and watch the kickoff. Now that you say that out loud, I thought he kind of hesitated a bit on the kickoff for a minute. So it almost looked like he was like, "Oh, I got this. Let me try it." And that might
And
be
it's
what
also,
happened.
and let's remember this, also a guy that was competing for the starting place kicking job and didn't get it. So maybe you make an impact with the coaches.
We also, here's the thing though. Did you want to show that against Oklahoma? Or did you or would you rather save that?
The argument would be that now Oklahoma has to walk up more people to the line, which they should be doing anyway. Every other college team other than Kent State does. They don't have just two people on one side of the field. I mean, those poor dudes. All right, so yeah, you walk people up, and then you're able to engage blockers, and your returner gets a better opportunity. That's the setup. If it was called by Josh Heupel, that would be the setup to make Oklahoma play very conservative in the return game, and then Tennessee breaks one against the Sooners. That would be something to watch for next week.
Yeah, okay, that actually makes sense. I can get on board with this. Josh Heupel, you're right, will never actually answer well, maybe he has. He's doing his live press conference now, and we're not around for it, but we'll write about it later. But maybe he is. If he did it,
he's not going to throw any player under the bus like Turbio.
No, he's not. If he called it just to call it, though, I mean, that's like, yeah, that would feel a little bush league to me. But oh my gosh, Austin, Ireland, you are horrible. You're going to hell.
What did you think of the Vols onside kick? Keep your foot on their throat, as Nico likes to say. 79% poor sportsmanship, 21%. I'm with 8 ball. And that is keep your foot on their throat, Caleb.
I don't believe in the keep your foot on the throat all the time, but I will say this. I'll say this much, and someone just said it. I'm coming around the Dave's side on a super conference. With these 3 games I've covered Tennessee playing, fans are getting cheated. They shouldn't be playing these 3 games. Chattanooga, NC State, and Kent State. College football's too special. Fans spend too much money to watch. I mean, Dave, that was just it was a bye week for Tennessee this week.
Here's what it was. Tulsa Ball and Elevate. Pure and simple, this was a big scrimmage, practice and player development game. These games are for getting ready for the SEC schedule, period. He wants to see as many players as possible. That's all very true. We're going to try to hit a new record of 1,000 concurrent viewers, but we need you to hit that like and subscribe button. And please answer our poll question about the onside kick that is on our YouTube page, Poor Sportsmanship or Keep Your Foot on Their Throat. We remind you the Last Look post-game show is brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and On.
See every play, even from the upper deck, with LASIK vision correction from the Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
All right, Caleb. The Hype Bowl. How big will the hype be for Josh Heupel returning to Oklahoma?
Oh, I think it'll be huge. And I think
we already know that College Game Day is going to be there.
College Game Day is going to be there. Guys, I told y'all a while ago, and I've told you guys from the start, that after the Oklahoma game, Tennessee would be the most talked about team in college football. The entertainment that comes and the talent that Nico shows will fully be on display. This is the only top 25 game of the evening that week. There were only 3 top 25 games all week next week that are going to happen, Dave, which is this game is one. Another one is Utah and Oklahoma State, which doesn't have the fan bases Tennessee and Oklahoma has. And the other one is Michigan and USC. But as you and I both know, Michigan is not Michigan. So this is the game of the week, and it is 7:30 at night for primetime television.
Yeah, and aside from that, there might not be a game all year that has a better storyline with the former national championship quarterback going back to his hometown. I mean, that is his home school. That fired him. You can't
write that.
Yeah, you can't write that. You can't make that up.
He firmly doesn't believe he should have been fired. If you ever listen to him in his press conferences, he thinks he was railroaded. He doesn't think he did anything wrong. He's taking this game very personal. And he has, I'm not saying he's not fond of his time at Oklahoma, but I'm saying he's very bitter towards them for this. and he is not afraid to humiliate them. And he wants to do everything he can to humiliate them. And look, I'm just going to say it. We know this, for all of us who know the history of Tennessee. Steve Spurrier was spurned by Doug Dickey growing up in Johnson City, 90 miles east of Knoxville, and made it a point to humiliate Tennessee whenever he got a chance to do it for the rest of his coaching career.
Yeah, but in all fairness, Dickey didn't want to completely change his offense for one dude. I always understood the reasoning there. Maybe if you knew he was going to win a Heisman Trophy, you should change it for him. But I don't think they knew that. I understand why those two didn't come together, and I don't.
Well, no,
yes, I do think. I think Steve Spurrier took it out on Philip Fulmer too. I don't think he liked Philip. I think
they ended up becoming friends later, but
oh yeah, whatever. He's still at his bar. He has, Steve Spurrier has a very upscale sports bar, and they've got the coasters that still say you can't spell citrus without UT. And
do you think that's because? Sorry.
Well, and he says, congratulations, Peyton Manning, on your third Citrus Bowl MVP award.
That's the best one. The best one was the year in '96 when after they won it, he said, well, we won our national championship. Now let's look at Tennessee's goals. SEC national title? Nope. SEC title? Nope. SEC East? Nope. How about state title? That was the year they lost to Memphis. He's like, oh, nope, they didn't win that one either. And he's like, oh, I guess they won the Knox County regional title.
Steve Spurrier thought he was a much smarter, better game coach, and that Philip Fulmer just relied on talent. And to him, that was an inferior way of doing things. Whereas if there was a combination of both in Gainesville, they probably won like 4 national titles.
You mean like if Peyton Manning went to Gainesville?
No, I meant more like if Steve Spurrier gave it above a C effort to recruit, which he clearly did not do.
No, that's very true.
Nico, here's a guy that really, it could, if we weren't so ahead of the curve, we would talk about him the lead of every show. We haven't addressed him now. What are your thoughts on Nico? I thought that, guys, his arm's almost as strong as Joe Milton. And
it's just got way better touch.
Way better touch. And Joe Milton never threw with his feet set. When he did, he had a bazooka. He should have been a pitcher. He's a pitcher. He's making millions of dollars right now in the major leagues.
Oh, yeah, he's Randy Johnson.
Yeah, but he's a righty.
Yes. But he is with that intimidating power.
Yeah. What did you think of Nico?
Okay, the deep balls are beautiful. His deep balls were on point. That pass over the middle wasn't. He had one pass over the middle that was incredible. Are we? Is it time to raise a bit of a red flag on some of those short out routes, Dave, and curl routes? Because he missed.
He had one picked off, and I didn't think that was a good ball.
And then he overthrew Caleb Webb on another one, and then there's the out route on Squirrel White that he missed last week. Are these just? I was talking about a really short out. I think that's a timing thing, typically, that hopefully would get worked out. Did you hear the commentators? I'm glad I didn't forget this, guys, because this to me was like either you're protecting Nico, like over protecting him, excuse me, or he's been just perfect. This blew me away. Quick message from Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
Is to visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
Okay, who was the color commentator? Was it Jordan Rogers?
Is that Jordan Rogers, yes.
Okay. Did you hear him say that the interception, which you and I have said, just an errant ball. It happens to the best of us, right?
Right.
That he was told that Brew McCoy actually throttled down on that slant route and that the ball was actually on the money. Now, I haven't had time to go back and look at that play, but the other interception was tipped under pressure. It's weird to me that you would leak that. I don't think Nico would do that. I think that's straight from Josh Heupel because that's my golden child. You don't have to protect him. You don't have to gloss him up. He's just fine. I don't care if that was an errant ball or Brew McCoy throttled down. But
no, I actually don't think Jordan Rodgers was told that. I think you can kind of tell that sometimes by watching film, and I haven't watched it myself. So what I'll give you an example of is, Dave, do you remember the pick six Tim Tebow threw to Eric Berry in the swamp? In 2007.
Yes.
You were covering the game, so you probably didn't hear it, but Gary Danderson was talking, and he was like, if you look at the way the receiver broke, it was very clear it's the receiver's fault because Tim Tebow thought the receiver was breaking a certain way, and he cut the other way. I got to go back. I thought that interception, I thought it looked like that when it happened, but I wasn't sure. But so Jordan Rodgers did a great breakdown one time. He actually shows, based on how linemen move and how receivers go and where quarterbacks go, it's very clear this was their intent. And he does this a lot. And guys, you can actually tell what the intent was of a play based on how everybody else moves on that play a lot of times. And it's one of the most underrated things. So I don't think he would have needed anything leaked to him to be told that. I think he would have been able to see the film to just see it. And so that's kind of the intriguing part. I got to go back and look at it, but that's a very interesting fact if what Jordan Rodgers is saying is true.
There's a part of me that kind of hopes he just made a bad throw, so we don't just sound like he's the most perfect person that's ever been born. I mean, at some point, it's getting ridiculous.
You're just trying to down him.
No, I'm not trying to down him.
Why do you hate Nico so much, Dave?
Yeah, I caught some heat from Bob Hodge, who in the pregame sports source, you may have seen me this morning if you're in Knoxville on television, which is a terrible sight. But I caught some heat because I said that by the time Tennessee and Georgia play, that Nico will be a better quarterback than Carson Beck. And I'm not talking about because he's younger and he has more time to be in the system. I think he will be playing at a higher level than Carson Beck at that moment when they play. I actually think that's already happened.
Oh, yeah, he's already better than Carson.
He was only 0.2% behind in quarterback percentage. He's better than Carson Beck right now. As a matter of fact, give me somebody in the nation that you would take over Nico.
There was only one person.
Not considering age. Not considering age. You've just got this year to win a championship.
There's only one person who has a case. I watched some of his highlights, and I told you this at the start of the show. Arch Manning is better than Quinn Ewers, and he might be better than Nico. He's amazing. Guys, I'm saying this right now. I don't know what's up here because that's what made Peyton Manning so great. But if what is up here is anywhere close to Peyton and Eli, he's going to go down as the greatest Manning of all time by far. I mean, he's an amazing quarterback. Go look at some of those highlights today, Dave.
No, he's good. I was pretty busy, but I saw a couple. So I want to close with this. What is and I'm going to put this in the poll question. We're going to hash it out right now. What's the better matchup? Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss in the SEC championship game versus Tennessee, or Tennessee versus Arch Manning and Texas in the SEC championship game?
Oh, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss.
No
Lane
way.
Kiffin and Ole Miss. It's too much. Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss is too much fun, largely because I don't think you can't feel burned if you're Tennessee because Arch Manning went to Texas. It's not like Tennessee had a lock on the Mannings. They just got one Manning and burned Ole Miss by getting him. But so I don't think it's like, if anything, Ole Miss facing Arch Manning is more of a burn than Tennessee facing Arch Manning.
Okay, there's a lot of good stories in both those. But I think the better one, honestly, is just watching Peyton Manning for a week kind of squirm, because he's so cognizant of how he's viewed in public. You ever notice his commercials and every time he's on TV, with the exception of the Manning cast, which I often wonder how orchestrated that is. He's very mindful of how he's viewed, and I would pay money to just watch him squirm for a little bit. Now, it's on the poll question, so go ahead and vote right now. If you haven't yet, please hit like and subscribe. And if you want to throw out a super chat cash for Caleb's young son, Quincy, it goes to his college fund. I keep none of it. That all goes to Caleb, but that's totally up to you because we're not begging you for money like some other places. All right, Caleb. So I think it's Arch Manning.
Here's the real story, though. It doesn't. Jordan Rogers brought it up tonight. I didn't even think about this. I've already told you guys, rest your starters, throw the SEC title game. I'm more for that now because I didn't. Jordan Rogers brought up a great point. The top 4 teams that get a bye will be the 4 conference champions, the 4 best conference champions. Dave, I don't know if you know this. The number 4 ranked conference champion, which will be the Big 12 champion probably, versus a 10-2 SEC team, which will be an 8 seed. The 8 seed will be better than the 4 seed. You'd rather be a 5 seed not having a bye and facing that 4 seed in the second round than being a 4 seed facing that 5 seed. I'm sorry.
This is actually a topic I wanted to do next week. It's actually, would you rather have a bye or would you rather have a home game in Neyland Stadium?
Would you bye and then a home game plus an easy second round?
Yeah. So we're gonna discuss all that next week. It's a topic I want to get into.
Stupid.
What's that?
This playoff is stupid, and I told you guys it would be.
What is the better matchup? I love it. You know why I love it? Because Florida State's now eliminated, and I know that. And I think that's cool. I mean, not that I don't
told you guys Memphis was going to win, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. That was a great call. It's not that I don't like Florida State. It's just that it's kind of neat that they were still in it after losing 2 games, but now you're gone. We all know you're gone. It's not going to happen. So they're eliminated. So then we know what teams to look at. And it's going to dwindle down week to week. I love it, but we'll see how it plays out. I understand your problems with it, and it may not be perfect, but I love it. What is the better matchup in the SEC championship game? Vols versus Texas and Manning. Vols versus Lane Kiffin, of course, of Ole Miss. Do you want to guess without looking, or are you looking?
I'm not looking. I think mine is winning. Vols versus Lane Kiffin is the better matchup.
It is pretty much 50-50. Wow. It is 52 to 48%.
Who's winning?
Oh, for the record, no, it's exactly 50-50 now. It just moved. The next person that votes, I'm gonna get, that's the champion. It's either me or Caleb. It's me. Vols versus Texas and Manning. There we go.
Lane Kiffin would actually throw. Lane Kiffin would be the one to actually throw the SEC title to make this point. Like Josh Heupel would run a vanilla offense, but like it's not worth fighting for to try to get it. Lane Kiffin would be like, I'm resting my starters. I'll just show all you guys up.
I'll tell you why you can't do that. You can't take the SEC championship game in that vein on Monday. We're live at 10 a.m. each and every weekday. But what I really, really need you to do, I need you to turn the notifications on, okay? Hit the like and subscribe button, sure. And a lot of you have done that. But when you hit that like and subscribe button, go ahead and turn the bell on so you know when we go live, because you never really know without the notifications on. And a certain center, who may be the best center in the nation, is going to join us tomorrow, Cooper Mays. So if I were you, I'd ring that bell. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Wow. The Last Look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, and Taylor, and Hahn. CCTEyes.com, the brand new fantastic website. Enjoy life better when you see better. And the Vols win by, what was the score again, Caleb?
71-0.
What did I pick, Caleb?
I don't even remember what you picked.
70-3.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation